Have you ever noticed that consumers don't really agree about what qualifies as good marketing? You might think that we do, but when you talk with your friends and your family and your peers, it becomes pretty clear that we're not on the same page on this stuff at all. Let me give you an example. You'll be driving in your car on a sunny day, and the radio will be on, and your friend will say, "I like this radio ad. It's fun." And you'll be taken back. "I don't like this radio ad. I kind of really don't like this radio ad. The jingle gets stuck in my head. It's annoying. It's bad marketing." And without fail, your friend will come back with, "Well, we're talking about it, aren't we? So it must be good marketing." It gets the conversation going. That's the point. Have you ever used this line? I've used that line plenty of times, and that's why it sucks having it used against you. It's really hard to argue against. It's treated as a bit of a conversational checkmate. But is that valid? Is that really what passes for good marketing these days? Is anything we talk about, anything we notice or engage with? I would say that's setting the bar pretty low. And what about SpaceX and Tesla? They shot a roadster into space for kicks, just because they can. Is that good marketing? We all have our own take. The gentleman in the back, he thinks so. He thinks it's good for brand awareness. The lady in the front, she doesn't think so. She thinks it's space junk. What good is a car hurling around our planet doing anyone? If anything, it's a liability to NASA. As consumers, we're all bombarded with marketing and advertising and brands interrupting our lives every single day, whether we like it or not. And we can't help but foster these hard opinions about the brands that we're interacting with. After a while, we even start to think that we know better than the brand regarding what they should be or do. The gentleman in the back, he thinks that Pepsi should go back to the classic logo. He thinks that vintage is the way to go. The lady in the front, she thinks that Craigslist should update their website already. Let's take a moment for Craigslist right now, because it's no secret that their web design could improve. Let's take a look. Yikes. It looks like the mutant offspring of a spam website or one of those park domain link pages, you know, when you type in the domain wrong. But is it really worth tampering with a tried and true user interface that's comforting and familiar? The world is divided on this subject. And what about the Discovery Channel? Who thinks that we should go all in on sharks and extend Shark Week indefinitely? It gets good ratings, it's what the people want, right? No. That last one is probably not the best idea. But I'm actually here to tell you that your own unique take on what brands should be or do is likely valid. It may be absolutely brilliant. I mean, how could it not be? You're a consumer. Your thoughts and feelings matter. But for a different reason, marketing and advertising efforts, there's no one way to go. There's numerous perfectly viable channels to explore in marketing. And indeed, that's a big part of the problem that I want to explain to you today, is that there are too many perfectly viable directions to go in marketing. You can't turn left as a professional marketer without being forced into alternative decisions that, on the face of it, both seem pretty good. And professional marketers are actually even worse. There's less consensus among marketing pros than there is with the common consumer. I still get that feeling sometimes when I'm in a boardroom with my colleagues and we're strategizing on a key account and we're trying to come up with a great marketing plan for a client. And I think that I've come up with a game-changing idea. It's on brand, it's creative, it fits the right target market, the offer's there, it's on budget. Everything in my experience tells me that this is a great idea. only to find that everyone else in the room is off getting excited about their idea. And these are brilliant marketers. They have my respect, they're fantastic at what they do, so how come they're not excited about my idea, I think? And it took me a while to learn that good marketing ideas, even great ideas, they don't have their own legs to stand on. If you want to push something through in marketing, you've really got to wind up and sell it internally. And this can get quite political. It may involve convincing the key decision maker that it's actually their idea, which can be a little bit manipulative. Or even rallying your own constituents to back you in a big meeting, or something just as simple as staying up late and putting together a really good pitch and presentation and backing it with some data. But no matter how you slice it, it's political. And I don't know any marketers that went into the industry for the politics of it all. Indeed, they didn't know it was political when they signed on for it. It's just a surprise waiting for you on your first day. And there's the challenge. The hidden back end of marketing, where in order for an inspired brand vision to be realized, everyone in the organization must truly understand it and buy into that direction wholeheartedly and understand how their role affects the collective effort. This is the place where it's corporate goals that actually drive the decisions and just align with the marketing strategies in the back end, lockstep. And this is a place that the consumer never actually sees. I don't think the consumers would care even if they saw it, but they don't. And it's wildly complex to manage. But this is where marketing is won. And yet, somehow, enormous, global, enterprise brands get it done. This seems surprising to me. You would think that the larger the organization, the more difficult it is to bring everyone who represents that brand into alignment. But truthfully, enterprise brands, the big brands, have major advantages to achieve this. For one, they have a very rigid corporate structure. Everyone knows their role. You don't get hired on at Nike as an intern and get the opportunity to chirp the ear of the creative director or the product innovation team on your first day. They wouldn't allow for it. Instead, they have amazing rosters of in-house talent for each of these niche roles. So they have creatives to create, and executives to decide, and administrators to execute. And they do it all with substantial budgets that allows them to tap into niche audiences, and foster communities, and spread their story. And this has been a major barrier to entry for many years for smaller brands, which is the ability to share what they've created, to share their story. What I'm trying to say is, consumers benefit when large brands achieve the gestalt, an organized whole that is perceived as more than the sum of its parts. Now, gestalt concepts are typically used in psychology, primarily, or graphic design and art, as it's very visual, where principles like closure and continuity and form all coalesce into an end result that's perceived as more than the sum of its parts. We don't see the parts. We just see the seamless grouped output. And the same can be said for successful brands. Consumers don't see the marketing backend. They just see the output. And indeed, the major predictor of marketing success is in fact the existence of a functional system that diffuses marketing and advertising strategies towards this type of gestalt outcome. Large brands are good at this, and small brands struggle with it. I don't even think that they fully understand that this is in fact the objective. So what is it about smaller brands that makes it more of a struggle to achieve this type of gestalt outcome? Let's unpack that. So right now we're talking about new brands and growing brands and smaller brands. By definition, their in-house roster of talent is far smaller. which means that there's less experience in the room to manage the Gestalt. That means to manage the constant influx of good, yet conflicting ideas. It's really important at this point to note that good ideas, although essential, are a dime a dozen. Anyone can put up their hand and fire off a series of really good ideas and make it somebody else's problem. The real skill is to harness and foster and funnel and channel those ideas towards a collective output in the eyes of the consumer. Smaller brands also, as a result of having a smaller in-house roster of talent, they often engage in agency partnerships. They work with a marketing agency. That's people outside the organization to execute and strategize on marketing objectives. And this is absolutely critical. There are many businesses that simply don't have the budget or the knowledge to sustain their own marketing department. And these partnerships help them get to the next level. There's many equitable partnerships to be had. But I'm here to tell you about some of the things that no one ever talks about, which is the challenges of these types of relationships and how they affect this Gestalt approach that I'm putting out for you right now. So for one, agency talent churns. There's an incredibly high turnover rate in the agency world. And when your agency account lead leaves, they take all of that tacit and explicit knowledge with them. It rarely gets transferred back to the agency, let alone the client brand in question. It could happen, but I'm just not seeing a lot of brands or agencies managing their knowledge in this way. And at the same time, when your agency account lead is working, they have this ability to create amazing, inspired strategies that don't necessarily have anything to do with anything else the business is doing. And this just creates disalignment in the marketing back end and ultimately confusion in the eyes of the consumer. Another major liability for a small business is, in fact, their agility, which is, again, really surprising because agility is something that's usually trumpeted as a major pro. And how could it not be? When you're small and agile, you can move fast and quick without the red tape, and you can out-hustle the sluggish enterprise brands to the new market opportunity or emerging market before they have a chance to adapt. But this almost always goes to your head. With the power of agility, there's really no motivation for smaller brands to commit to one market position for any sustained period of time, which is actually brand suicide. This is why I see so many smaller brands reinventing their marketing every single year or every single quarter. Think of that creative person that we know. Someone who is very good at creating large concepts, big, edgy concepts that make you think. They touch your heart and tap into your emotions. These people aren't good at consistent execution or administration. No, they're creatives. And creative people can't be bound by the minutiae of conceptual consistency. It just holds them back. They must create. And create. And create. At all costs. Even if it means stepping on the toes of yesterday's decisions and contradicting their past ideas and generally creating chaos for the people picking up the pieces behind them. And good on them. They're essential for the system that I'm describing. Their ideas just have to be managed and harnessed and guided and brought into alignment with the system. And only then can their ideas be shaped and formed into a consistent message that forms a gestalt in the consumer's mind. Companies that do this become real brands. They find a place in the user's mind that's so much more than their specific marketplace offer. They share common ground, and there's an emotional element in the consumer's mind when they think of these brands. Businesses that don't achieve this are marketing offers in the wind. They're marketing offers of their parts, and they'll never achieve the compound interest that the main brands do. As a fractional chief marketing officer, a fractional chief, a CMO, who works with growing brands and brands in their growth phase, I can tell you firsthand the predictive power that this type of a model has on success in a business. It's the difference between soaring profits and plateauing growth. And the truth is that Today, all these barriers I've described are in our heads. This is a major opportunity for small brands. It's a conceptual switch that they need to realize that they shouldn't be bound by the same limitations that they were yesterday. I'll give you 4 quick reasons why the Gestalt approach to marketing is now more approachable now than ever. 1 is as simple and mundane as project management and communication software. With the right leader utilizing that type of software, you can now bring your entire team into alignment on what they think the brand is and what they're working on, and you can all beat by the same drum. Number 2 is digital marketing and advertising. It has grown in leaps and bounds even in the past 5 years. It is wickedly powerful. I still can't even fathom how useful this is and how underutilized it is, despite all the hype. So this erodes a major barrier to entry that we've already talked about, which is the ability to tap into those niche audiences and foster communities and tell your story. It's no longer that budgetary constraint that it once was. Any brand can now do this. You don't need the budgets of an enterprise brand, you can do it to scale. Number 3 is that consumers are ready for it. There's a natural predisposition for people to prefer local, organic, community-oriented brands. They want to interact with small and local brands the way that they do with global brands, consumers do. They're just waiting for the small local brands to get their act together and start giving them something with consistency and common ground. And 4, today's access to data allows any brand that's willing to make decisions based on fact and stats, rather than the gut feeling of somebody else in the room. And this is one more way to bring your brand into alignment for the people who are making decisions. It's an argument stopper, it's a conversation ender. Still, all of this is for naught without the ability to manage the Gestalt. And for that, I'd like to leave you with the Gestalt Marketing Rulebook. Step 1, alignment must come from the top. That means a strong CMO reporting to a very consistent CEO. Step 2, feedback must be fostered from the bottom. That means that all voices must be heard, even if decisions are coming from the top. Step 3 is that everyone in the system must understand the brand vision and know how their role affects the collective effort. And step 4, consumers must be shown the consistent output. Whether that's a really annoying radio jingle that reminds you that a local business exists, or a roadster hurling around our planet reminding us about a brand that pushes the limits, or even better, simple and consistent messages from a brand where we find common ground and value. The Gestalt. Thank you.